A sojourn on the Great River Road in Louisiana is an education in history and architecture. The flavor of the continent is gently and lovingly blended with a potpourri of the Indian, French, Spanish, English, and American cultures of the New World. In this state of legend and romance, you will feel the uniqueness born of many cultural superimpositions on a natural landscape, lush and semi-tropic, in which the best European traditions were reinterpreted to work better with the regional materials and geographic and geological conditions. This complex transposition is one of the secrets of the indigenous quality of the finest architecture and some of the richest history to be found anywhere in the United States. At the beginning of the state's Great River Road route lies West Feliciana, one of Louisiana's most remote and verdantly beautiful parishes. The colonizing phase of Louisiana's history began in 1682 when La Salle claimed it for France and named it after King Louis XIV. When Iberville and Bienville came to the Feliciana region prior to 1700, they found the Humas Indians here. In the early 1700s, the Tunica Indians came in and drove the Humas to the south. The first Europeans to settle this area were the French in the 1730s. They named their settlement Village of St. Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi. Following the French and Indian War in 1763, the French transferred this region to England by the Treaty of Paris. The remainder of Louisiana had been ceded to Spain the year before. King George III named the land West Florida and rewarded retired British soldiers with land grants in this sparsely populated region. Before and during the American Revolution, many Tory sympathizers on the eastern seaboard found refuge here, thus strengthening the English character of the land. These early settlers raised cotton, indigo, and tobacco. Other Anglo-Saxons came after the Revolutionary War, such as the Butlers, who added to the original structure of the cottage, which had been built in the late 1700s. The resultant long, rambling house became a spacious country home with many doors and windows opening onto a wide gallery to take advantage of soft breezes breaking the hot, humid climate. Spain regained West Florida in 1779, and Galvez renamed the region Feliciana, Spanish for happy land. Live oak, built on a 1796 Spanish land grant, shows the Spanish influence, with its unusually heavy plastered brick columns of the ground floor. The Industrial Revolution in England and the invention of the cotton gin by Eli Whitney in 1792 generated a land boom and cotton rush in the rich river valleys. Many southern plantation families of the Carolinas and Virginia left their worn-out acres and moved westward. So eager were they for fresh land that many came to Louisiana, despite the fact that the region was now ruled by Spain rather than England. The widow Barrow moved her children and possessions here in 1800 to become one of the first Anglo-Saxon families to settle in the South. The Feliciana Cotton Kingdom was good to these planters in the early 19th century. Afton Villa was built by a Barrow grandson at the height of the Golden Age, which proceeded in opulence in Louisiana's Feliciana country. All that remains of the French Gothic chateau, destroyed by fire in 1963, is the foundation. And statues, standing like Pompeian ruins, sentinels who watched over a fabled era in history. This grand garden showplace is a year-round attraction with flowers for every season. Here in the gently undulating forest-covered hills, mannered Englishmen lived in the tradition of their Anglo-Saxon forebears, with their love of hunting, fishing, and horse racing. and built their palatial mansions. Greenwood, a dignified and restrained Grecian temple, stands lofty and proud on a hill as testimony to their love for beauty, grandeur, and the good life. Moss-laden trees form the setting for Rosedown, a lavish and authentic restoration open as a living museum of the Old South. It resembles a Virginia manor house in its echoes of simplicity and pure contours. Built in 1835 by members of a plantation society whose affluence matched that of European nobility and who had the means to create the true glory of Rosedown. 28 acres of formal gardens inspired by the 17th century palace gardens of Versailles, France. The original plantation records show the Turnbulls importing oriental trees and shrubs and azaleas as early as 1836, years before credit is given for their introduction to America. Vibrant and abundant plantings have grown for a century and a half here, a proving ground for the exotic flora of the Orient. In the plantation doctor's cabin, over 500 people on Rosedown were cared for amid imported Italian Carrara marble figures of gods and goddesses from Greek and Roman mythology. A few miles away is Locust Grove, a secluded country cemetery where Sarah Knox Davis is buried. She was the daughter of U.S. President Zachary Taylor and the first wife of President Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy. Just inside the city limits of St. Francisville is the Myrtles, built in 1830 on a Spanish land grant made during the 18th century. It has a 120-foot gallery enclosed in an elaborate grape cluster cast iron railing. Situated in the heart of St. Francisville, one-time capital of the Republic of West Florida, is the Town Museum and Tourist Center, containing an exhibit of 5 miniature plantation rooms depicting the antebellum lifestyle of the planters. St. Francisville was chartered prior to 1808, and it is said that practically every building has some historical significance. Street names such as Florida, Ferdinand, and Feliciana are reminders of Spain's former ownership. Grace Episcopal Church, built in 1858, exemplifies the Gothic Revival style of architecture, which retained its beauty and majesty, but lost the excessive ornateness found in the European counterparts. A few miles south of St. Francisville is Oakley, ample, unsophisticated, timeless, showing the influences of Acadian and West Indian architecture. It was here during a 4-month stay in 1821 as a tutor that John James Audubon, famous naturalist, painted 32 of his famous Birds of America series. Furnished in authentic pieces from the artist's time, the house is the center of the Audubon Memorial State Park and Bird Sanctuary, 100 acres of ornithological paradise, as this area is the apex of the Great Mississippi Valley Migratory Flyway. Picnic accommodations and private campgrounds are available in the park. Descending southward from the rolling hills of the Felicianas, we come to Port Hudson. The old town, situated on the high bluffs of the Mississippi River, overlooking an expansive panoramic view, was the bloody Civil War scene of one of the longest sieges in U.S. military history in the summer of 1863. Miles of its original breastworks and entrenchments remain perfectly intact, making it the most well-preserved Civil War battlefield. The state maintains a 640-acre commemorative park with an interpretive center, museum, and hiking trails. This antebellum home was used as a Confederate hospital. The 4,000 graves in the National Cemetery bear mute testimony to the terrible fighting which once took place here. At the northern entry to Baton Rouge is Southern University, the parent campus for the largest predominantly black university system in the United States. Established in 1880 and offering some 128 programs of study, Southern is located on the high bluffs of the Mississippi River at one of the most beautiful sites anywhere. On the campus, Lake Kernan and the Louisiana oaks create a picturesque setting for one of the most modern physical plants in the South. Baton Rouge, named by the French explorer Iberville, who first sighted an Indian encampment here in 1699, is the nation's farthest inland port. The area along the river is the central business district and the location of the original settlement. The name Baton Rouge, French for red stick, comes from the sighting of the Indian sacrificial baton. The seat of government and center of commerce for the area, Baton Rouge boasts the tallest Capitol building in the nation, built by Huey P. Long in 1932, situated on 27 acres of formal gardens. The old state capitol, proudly standing on the high bluffs of the Mississippi, one of Louisiana's most unique buildings, a history of stormy politics, romantically encased in Gothic Revival architecture. St. Joseph's Cathedral, cradle of bishops, the oldest church in the town, site of French settlers celebrating their first Mass in 1719. St. James Episcopal, 1895, another example of Gothic Revival architecture. The First Baptist Church, the elements of Greek Revival. The Warden's House is one of the state's few true Georgian buildings, characterized by exquisite detailing of windows and doors, the only remaining building of the old Louisiana Penitentiary. The old governor's mansion, modeled after the White House, has been restored to the period of the 1930s when it was built and is now a museum and planetarium. The new governor's mansion, an example of modified Greek Revival architecture, reminiscent of the stately mansions of old Louisiana. Mount Hope, built entirely of cypress in 1817 by a German planter, one of the first settlers of the area. Built in the late 1700s, Magnolia Mound's basic form and plan typify early Louisiana building techniques. It is one of the few remaining examples of bousillage construction in the walls. In this type of building, the walls are insulated with moss and clay between the cypress planks. Louisiana State University, founded in 1860 with its first president being William Tecumseh Sherman, has grown into a modern university with a 3,000-acre campus and a peak enrollment of 50,000 students. The LSU Rural Life Museum, located off campus on the Burton Research Plantation, is a 5-acre time capsule of the first half of the 19th century. Its buildings, equipment, tools, and furnishings authentically depict the way of life in early rural Louisiana. The working plantation consists of a complex of buildings, which reconstruct all the major activities of life on a typical plantation of the early 1800s. The folk architecture section has a country church, a pioneer's cabin, a corn crib, and an Acadian house. The barn contains hundreds of artifacts of everyday rural life, dating from prehistoric times to the early 20th century. A short distance from Baton Rouge is a cluster of fine plantation homes on a 10-mile stretch of the Old River Road. Ashland was one of the great sugar plantations. Surrounded by a colonnade of pillars 4 feet square and 30 feet high, the house is of unusual height, a proud and stately monument to the Louisiana diplomat and planter who had it built in 1841. Ashland became famous for its hospitality, wine stock, library, and racing stable. Built soon after the War of 1812, L'Hermitage was one of 5 plantation homes in the Brangier family, one of the wealthiest and most influential Creole families in the state. The Hermitage is probably the most perfect example of Louisiana classic architecture, pure of line and mass and excellently proportioned. The first French settlers of the 1700s were pioneers looking for a better life, and by the 1800s, Creoles, Americans of French or Spanish descent, were landowners and successful planters. This one, bocage, means shady retreat in French. Bagatelle, constructed of solid cypress, their favorite building material because it was so readily available and resists moisture, decay, and termites, has been moved twice and now nestles in a new spot on the river road. One of the most imposing mansions in Louisiana, Homas House, was named after the Homas Indians who originally held the land. Revolutionary War General Wade Hampton bought it in 1811, and his daughter and son-in-law moved here from South Carolina to grow sugarcane. The house that the Prestons built in 1840 combines Anglo-American architectural features with the lavishness and traditions of the Louisiana plantation homes. The Belvedere, high at the top of the roof, a reminder of their former seaboard home. The Doric columns and the grandeur of the Greek Revival style. Galleries to afford the advantages of alfresco living in the hot, humid climate. Garçonnières of brick and plaster, the traditional bachelor's quarters in the Creole country. In 1857, John Burnside, an Irish immigrant, acquired the 10,000-acre estate for $2 million and combined it with several others to become the Sugar Prince of Louisiana. Crossing the mile-wide Mississippi River at Baton Rouge to the west side and continuing on the route of the Great River Road, we come to Monte Vista, a French colonial home now placed at the foot of the levee by the encroaching river. It was built in the 1850s by Louis Favreau. Sugarcane mills in the rural areas are evidence of the domination of sugar in the rich, fertile valleys of the Mississippi. Land, in many places here, is still recorded in arpents, the French land measure for acres. Restoration of the old Bayou Plaquemine locks as a maritime museum is being sponsored by the federally funded Great River Road project. The town of Plaquemine, with its many fine old buildings, offers a bit of passing history through the parishes along the river. The term parish, instead of county, goes back to the Roman Catholic Church designation for a priest's assigned area of service. Also in the lush cane country of Iberville Parish is Nottoway, built in 1858, with 50 rooms, the largest remaining plantation home in Louisiana. An old cypress home with Victorian embellishments still stands, though forlorn and seemingly forgotten. Donaldsonville is an historic and quaint old town along the river. The Ascension Catholic Church was founded in 1772 when Louisiana belonged to Spain on orders of King Charles III. The first missionaries in the Louisiana Territory were French priests who followed Marquette and Joliet down the Mississippi River from Canada in the late 1600s. Mighty live oaks, indigenous to Louisiana, silently withstanding the ravages of time, complement the peaceful countryside. Some predate Columbus' discovery of America. The Acadians, having been exiled from Nova Scotia, first landed in St. James and Ascension parishes along the Mississippi River. An incomparable Louisiana setting for Oak Alley, with its generous concept and the perfection of its proportions, makes it the grande dame of plantation homes. The natural majesty and massiveness of the oaks, whose branches have long since interlaced, are reflected in the pillars, somewhere between Doric and Tuscan. This lack of close adherence to any fixed style, and the vision to modify accepted treatment to meet local needs, and the special demands of brick, baked on the place, hand-hewn cypress, and hand-wrought iron, shaped the unique quality of the Louisiana classic style. The procession of 300-year-old oaks to the River Road has given Oak Alley its hallmark. Now preserved as one of the most complete working plantations, with its 2,500 acres still intact, Evergreen House, purely Greek revival, the style prominent right before the Civil War, is the focal point for a sugarcane plantation, the best existing example of a way of life in Louisiana. The vanishing Louisiana provincial type, a common sense home with porches to provide outdoor sitting place and circulation. Old ruins depict one of the earliest types of construction, briquette entre poteaux, brick between the posts. Joined with clamshell mortar, the bricks were placed between heavy posts of swamp cypress, so perfectly suited to the humid climate. The route of the Great River Road crisscrosses the Mississippi from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Riding one of the many ferries along the way provides time for reflection on the Father of Waters, discovered by De Soto in 1541, the largest navigable river system in the world. On the West Bank, again, several major points of interest are to be seen before approaching the Queen City of New Orleans. Before the Civil War, Jefferson College was an establishment of higher learning for the sons of wealthy planters. The main building, a magnificent classical 22-column structure. Operated as a boys' boarding school by the Roman Catholic Marist Fathers after the war, it has been restored and is maintained by the Jesuit Fathers as Manresa Retreat House, where the only sound breaking the silence is the splash of an artesian well in the courtyard. Another Louisiana original, San Francisco, the example of Steamboat Gothic, the creation of a man possessed by the fantasy of the literature of the time and his dream to replicate the floating palaces plying the Mississippi, representing to him the essence of the good life. Ornate with Rococo grillwork and fluted pillars, picturesque, happy, a lingering breath of Bavaria, San Francisco is said to have cost Monsieur Marmillon his all. Painstakingly restored, even to the interiors enwreathed in frescoes of cherubs, flowers, nymphs, and birds, and beautifully and authentically refurnished with exquisite period pieces based on the description in Marmillon's inventories, San Francisco is truly a gem. Destrehan Manor, built in 1787, is the oldest house remaining on the River Road. Beginning the development of the Louisiana plantation home was the West Indies influence, in the roof and galleries to afford protection from the sun and abundant shading, in raising the dwelling to protect the main portions of the house from dampness. The bousillage, moss and clay construction of the walls, is the concept of adobe construction borrowed from the Indians by the earliest French settlers. And now we've come to the gateway to the Americas, New Orleans, the Crescent City, founded in 1718 by two French Canadians, Bienville and Iberville. Throughout Throughout its early history, France and Spain vied for control of this important port city, cradled on three sides by the Mississippi, the spine of water transportation for the nation. And bounded on the north by Lake Pontchartrain, a nesting ground for some of the most fabulous seafood in the world, and one of the premier centers of sailing in this country, with such events as the annual France-Louisiana Bastille Day Celebration Regatta. This melange of architecture that gleams like a jewel is America's most interesting and exciting city, the city that care forgot. Canal Street, the downtown boundary of the French Quarter, the widest street in the world, the center of shopping in the city. Canal Street, where for 2 weeks preceding the Lenten season, the annual Mardi Gras and the unique old world atmosphere combine to attract thousands to the greatest free carnival celebration this side of Rio de Janeiro. Throngs of people from all over the world pack the streets to participate in this kaleidoscope of merriment. The last bash before 40 days of fasting and abstinence. Mardi Gras provides enough joie de vivre to last until Easter. Resembling a gigantic spaceship, the massive Superdome has a seating capacity of 90,000. The home of the New Orleans Saints is the largest structure of its kind in the world. A common reminder of the past are the ancient-looking cemeteries with oven-like tombs above the ground containing the remains of early French and Spanish settlers. Because of the high water table, burials must be made above ground in brick, marble, and cast iron tombs. Interesting epitaphs and oddities abound. There's no better way to turn back the time than with an unforgettable river cruise on one of the many regularly scheduled excursions on the paddle wheel steamers. Narrated tours and mint juleps combine for a relaxing and informative trip. At the foot of the old town square is the Moonwalk Promenade, where one can watch the great tankers and freighters, the ferry boats, and the stern wheelers make their way up and down the mighty Mississippi. The venerable St. Louis Cathedral, the oldest in the United States, dating back to 1724, and named for King Louis IX of France, who led 2 crusades, dominates the French Quarter, or Vieux Carré, the original 85-block city planned in 1720. The focal point of the plan, Jackson Square, was originally the Place d'Armes and was used as a military drill and parade ground. Later dedicated to Andrew Jackson, hero of the War of 1812, who in the Battle of New Orleans saved the city from the British. This most sacred block of soil in Louisiana is now a public park. On one side of the cathedral, the Cabildo, dating back to 1770, was the former seat of government during the Spanish and French rule of the early colony. One of the most important buildings in the nation historically and architecturally, it was here that France formally transferred the territory of the Louisiana Purchase to the United States in 1803. Flanking the other side of the cathedral, the presbytere, intended as a priest's residence and used as a courthouse, is now a museum. Jackson Square is always alive with open-air performances of jazz bands and other musical groups. The provide a lively background for the sidewalk artists who daily line the square's wrought iron fences with their creations displayed for sale to the art fancier. Built in 1850 by the Baroness Pontalba, the two red brick buildings flanking Jackson Square were the first apartment houses in the nation. Their lacy iron balconies and courtyard gardens are repeated throughout the quarter on buildings dating back to the 1700s. The French Quarter, with its straight, narrow streets lined with old-world construction, was the original Franco-Spanish city of the Creoles. Today, it is a mecca for visitors seeking fun and excitement. Jazz was born in New Orleans, and emporiums dedicated to the preservation of the music which is the soul of the city provide the heartbeat of the quarter. The entertainment is continuous and provides a night on the town long to be remembered. Legend has it that this 1772 French colonial townhouse, now a popular pub, was once a blacksmith shop operated by the famed pirates Jean and Paul Lafitte. This raised cottage of the French colonial period is thought to be the oldest building in the Mississippi Valley and is now a state museum. Forming the riverfront perimeter of the historic French Quarter is the colonnaded French Market, where the fruit and vegetable vendors hawk their fresh crops to the morning shoppers. For over 160 years, its open stalls of colorful produce have served the public with the freshest and most exotic cornucopia to be found anywhere. It is said that almost anything that will grow anywhere else will grow as well or better in the semi-tropical moist climate of Louisiana. Also in the market are quaint little eateries and bistros. And no visit to the French Quarter is ever quite complete without a stop at the Café du Monde for some of its world-famous café au lait and beignets. World-renowned for its fabulous Creole cuisine, the city features a wealth of fine restaurants serving everything from seafood po' boys to gourmet delights prepared from recipes handed down from generation to generation. And for browsing and shopping, Royal Street, Antique Row, where the aficionados can literally spend days in all the shops and never exhaust the selection of furniture and objets d'art dating from the 1700s to the present. There's fun and excitement for all ages in New Orleans. The Ragin' Cajun, one of over 100 rides at the amusement park at Pontchartrain Beach. The 250-acre Audubon Park, named for the great naturalist and painter, houses a complete collection of wildlife. The park also offers a golf course, swimming pool, tennis courts, a miniature train which tours the grounds, picnic areas, and a public pavilion on the levee with a view of the river. And across the street are two famous universities. Tulane, founded in 1834, is among the law schools still teaching the Napoleonic Code, the Louisiana legal system that's unique in America, and Loyola, the South's largest Catholic university. A ride on a St. Charles streetcar, one of America's last remaining trolley lines, is the best way to see the Garden District. an exclusive residential section of the city established by the Americans who came to New Orleans after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Rebuffed by the haughty Creoles, the affluent Anglo-Saxons built stately mansions, splendidly appointed and set on beautiful spacious lawns to harmonize with the area's lush greenery, in total contrast to the Vieux Carré, where the homes were built in the Spanish style around small courtyards. Inspired by the Generalife Gardens of the Alhambra, the 13th century Moorish palace of Granada, Spain, Longview Gardens is a peaceful retreat from the busy city. Water in motion. Beautiful statuary. Flowering fragrances and the tranquil beauty of a pastoral wood offer a delightful treat to the senses. Located in City Park, the New Orleans Museum of Art features special collections of Impressionist, contemporary, and pre-Columbian art. It is also a cultural center for such visiting exhibits as Africa in Antiquity and the Treasures of Tutankhamun. Located 6 miles downriver from New Orleans, this long earthen wall of the Chalmette National Battlefield was the scene of General Andrew Jackson's main line of defense at the Battle of New Orleans. Jackson's army, together with pirate Jean Lafitte and his ruffians, successfully defended the city from the British in the greatest land victory of the War of 1812. Now the headquarters and visitors center for the Chalmette National Historic Park, the René Beauregard House, built 17 years after the battle, was later occupied by the son of Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard, Judge René Beauregard, for whom it is named. Now restored to its original beauty of color and detail by the National Park Service. Massive, star-shaped Fort Jackson, constructed in 1822 to protect the river approach to New Orleans, played a prominent role in the Battle of New Orleans during the Civil War. It sustained a week of shelling by Admiral Farragut's fleet before the Union gunboats ran past the fort to capture New Orleans in 1862. Fort Jackson remains as one of America's greatest national landmarks and museums. And today, its archways, casemates, and parade grounds are the scene of the annual Plaquemines Parish Fair and Orange Festival, where colorful booths and exhibits of citrus fruit grown in the parish, along with lovely queens and maids and handsome kings and dukes, are displayed. After embracing some 2,000 miles of scenic, recreational, and historic sites on its route from Canada through the 10 states of the Mississippi River Valley, the Great River Road terminates at Venice, Louisiana, near the mouth of the Mississippi. From here, that old man river just keeps rolling, keeps on rolling along, out to the Gulf of Mexico.